My name is Madison Harper, and I'm 39 years old. After nearly 2 decades clawing my way through the brutal world of construction and real estate development in Los Angeles, I finally reached the summit of everything I had ever dreamed of, a stunning penthouse villa perched high above Beverly Hills, commanding a view of the entire city as it glittered beneath the California night sky. Every brick, every ceiling beam, every pane of glass along the southern wall was the result of relentless grind, ruthless sacrifices, and an unbreakable will. This villa wasn't just my home. It was proof that I had survived every sneer, every whisper, every door slammed in my face by people who thought I would never rise above the dust they tried to bury me in. Tomorrow afternoon was supposed to be the beginning of a new chapter, the housewarming party I had planned for months. I had hired a top-tier event team, secured catering from my favorite French bistro, and crafted every little detail to celebrate with the few people who had truly walked through fire with me. But that morning, while reviewing final invoices, a strange notification lit up my phone. Suspicious activity detected, Harper Enterprises corporate card. $8,500 spent at an event rental company I'd never heard of. My heart clenched. I made a mental note to call my lawyer Sophie after the party. Maybe it was just a glitch. Maybe. But deep down, I already knew glitches didn't happen to people like me. Later that day, I pulled into the private driveway. Still unsettled, still trying to shake off the nagging feeling clawing at my gut. I climbed the front steps, key poised in my hand, and froze. From inside my brand new villa came a voice I recognized too well, Sienna's voice. "Don't you think this is just perfect for the wedding? The mezzanine would be ideal for the stage, and we can fit a gorgeous reception tent out back." My blood ran cold. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. Sienna stood in the center of the grand hall, her heels clicking lightly against the pristine walnut floors, chatting animatedly with a blonde woman who looked every inch the wedding planner. They moved around like they owned the place, tossing around ideas about orchids and string lights, as if my blood, sweat, and tears were just casual decor. "Sienna," I said, my voice sharp but steady, "what the hell are you doing here?" She turned, her face lighting up like she'd just won a prize she never earned. "Oh, Maddie, I thought Mom and Dad told you they decided to gift this villa to Derek and me as a wedding present. It's just so perfect for starting our family." For a long second, I simply stared at her. Memories flooded my mind. Me bent over blueprints at 2 a.m., 20-hour days, managing crews scraping together every last dollar for permits and materials. I had given up relationships. I had given up years. I had given up everything to stand in this villa today. And now here she was. Sienna, the youngest, the golden child, the girl who hadn't kept a job longer than a summer internship, claiming my life's work like it was her birthright. "This is my house," I said quietly, forcing my voice not to shake. "I poured every cent I had into building it." Sienna only smiled, that soft, condescending smile she had mastered back in high school, whenever she needed to get out of trouble. "But you live alone, Maddie. You don't need a place this big. Mom and Dad thought you'd understand if you just thought about the family a little more. Like clockwork." My parents waltzed in through the back door. Elaine immediately started instructing the planner about where to set up the floral arch. Walter deliberately avoided meeting my eyes. "What is happening?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Why is there a wedding being planned in my house?" Elaine turned to me, her voice syrupy sweet, that practiced tone she always used when delivering betrayal wrapped in a bow. "Madison, sweetheart, Sienna's getting married. You're always working, always away. This villa's just sitting here empty. It only makes sense for her to live here and raise a family." For a split second, the ground tilted under me. I gripped the stair railing to stay upright, betrayed again, by my own blood. But the weakness lasted only a heartbeat. My hands balled into fists, and the ice returned to my veins. "Everyone out of my house now." Sienna's eyes widened. She opened her mouth to protest, but Walter cut in, adopting that condescending tone he reserved for moments when he thought he could control me. "Maddie, don't be dramatic. This is about supporting the family. You're successful. You can build another home anytime you want. But Sienna, she's starting fresh. She needs stability." I laughed a sharp, hollow sound that echoed off the marble floor I had personally flown to Italy to choose. You want me to sacrifice the one thing I built, I said, voice low and furious. Because I made it and she didn't. Sienna stepped forward, fake confidence radiating off her. You don't get it. This is the first time I'm serious. Derek and I were building something real. Mom and Dad just want to give us a solid foundation. I could barely breathe through the rage tightening my chest. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, Walter added smoothly, "And you agreed to it, Maddie. Remember that temporary property authorization you signed months ago while you were traveling? You gave us permission to handle things." My stomach dropped. I remembered rushing to the airport signing a document he pushed across the table. "Just in case of emergencies," he'd said. Sophie had reviewed it afterward, but even so, knowing they had twisted my trust into a weapon made my blood boil. "Not for this," I snapped. I straightened, the fury crystallizing into something colder, sharper. They thought I'd fold. They thought wrong. A solid foundation. I looked each of them in the eye one by one. A foundation you didn't even break a sweat for. A foundation you didn't lift a single brick to build. The air thickened. Elaine nervously tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a tell she couldn't hide when she felt cornered. "Madison, you seem exhausted," she said, voice dripping false concern. "Let's not argue over technicalities. Your father handled most of the paperwork, remember? Legally, it might still be flexible." My stomach twisted. Flexible. The word echoed like a warning siren. I narrowed my eyes. In that moment, everything clicked together faster than I could have prepared for. This wasn't a spontaneous misunderstanding. It wasn't about love or family or starting fresh. It was a calculated heist wrapped up in pretty speeches about new beginnings. And I wasn't going to be their silent casualty anymore. Without another word, I walked to the dining table, grabbed my laptop, and powered it up. My fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up the documents I had prepared months ago, because some part of me had always known better than to trust blood over proof. When the screen lit up, I turned the laptop toward them. "Here's everything," I said coolly. "Construction contracts. City-issued building permits, invoices for materials, payment records, all of it drawn straight from my personal accounts. And then the final nail, a folder labeled Property Deed, inside a scanned certified copy of the ownership certificate clearly marked Madison L. Harper. This villa legally belongs to me," I said. "Only me. There are no other names on it. Not yours, not Dad's, not anyone's." Sienna's mouth fell open, her face draining of color. But Dad said she stammered. I cut her off with a look so sharp she recoiled. "Your dad," I said, turning to Walter, "had nothing to do with any of it. I filed the blueprints myself. I negotiated every permit with the Department of Building and Safety. I paid every contractor out of my own accounts. If necessary, I have recordings from contractor meetings, email threads, timestamps. I can and will take all of it to court." The room grew suffocatingly quiet. No more excuses. No more lies. I stood taller, my voice unshakable. "I won't let anyone, family, or not erase 20 years of sacrifice just because they feel entitled to the end result." Elaine's voice cracked as she whispered, "Maddie, you can't. You're tearing the family apart over a house." I shook my head slowly. "No, Mom. You tore this family apart the moment you decided my work. My dreams were just another thing to be handed off, like a spare set of silverware." Without giving them time to regroup, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number that had been on standby for months. "Sophie, it's Maddie. Please resend all villa-related contracts to my email. I want printed copies delivered by this evening. And while you're at it, call the security company. I want new locks installed tonight. Surveillance system upgrades full perimeter." Across the room, Walter's face darkened. His voice dropped low and heavy. "You're crossing a line, Madison." A bitter smile tugged at my lips. "A line," I repeated. "No, Walter, the line was crossed the second you walked into my home with a wedding planner and acted like I was already gone." My voice sharpened to a blade. The line was crossed when my worth was measured only by how much I could sacrifice. I've been silent long enough. Sienna clutched the hem of her designer dress, her bravado slipping fast. I thought," she began. "You thought I'd cave. I finished for her. My voice cold and final, "You were wrong." I strode toward the massive front doors, the warm breeze rolling in, carrying the scent of the lavender I had planted along the terrace. I held the door wide open. "You have 10 minutes to leave. After that, it'll be considered trespassing, and I will not hesitate to call the police." They stood frozen. Elaine's hands trembled as tears welled up in her eyes, but I felt nothing. Walter turned away, jaw clenched in silent rage. Sienna glared at me like I was the one who had betrayed them. "Maddie," she whispered, voice shaking. "I didn't think you could be this heartless." I shrugged, utterly unmoved. "I'm not heartless," I said. "I'm just finally protecting what's mine. If that bothers you, maybe it's time you learned how to build something with your own two hands instead of stealing it from mine." I closed the door behind them, the lock clicking into place like the closing of a chapter. My hands trembled slightly, but not from fear, from freedom. This was my life, and from now on, no one was going to write it but me. Less than 2 hours after I watched Sienna, Walter, and Elaine walk out of my home, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Messages started pouring in from Aunt Patricia, then Uncle Martin, then cousins I hadn't spoken to in over 3 years, all carrying the same thinly veiled threat: family comes first. Madison. Another text: "Don't be so selfish." One message referred to me as a walking refrigerator. Another read, "You only have one sister. Houses can be rebuilt, family can't." I read each line carefully, deliberately. Not a single person bothered to ask what had led me to this point. Not one. No one cared about the sleepless nights, the risks I had taken, the years I poured into building this villa from nothing but sweat and grit. In their minds, I was simply the villain because I refused to hand over the fruits of my labor without a fight. I set the phone aside without replying and moved to the kitchen. The kettle whistled, and soon a cup of peppermint tea sat between my hands, steam curling upward like a ghost. I stared out the floor-to-ceiling glass windows, letting my mind drift back to a memory I hadn't thought about in years. I was 14 when Sienna lost the delicate bracelet Mom had given her, the one she treasured so much. Rather than admitting she had been careless, Sienna blamed me. I was grounded for a week. She meanwhile was rewarded with a new bracelet 3 times more expensive. Today's betrayal was no different. Only now the stakes were millions higher, and this time I wasn't going to stay silent. The phone rang again. "Sienna." I let it vibrate until it stopped. Seconds later, a voicemail popped up. My thumb hovered, then tapped play. Her voice, syrupy sweet but sharpened with mockery, filled the room. "Maddie, you should really take a look in the mirror. You're jealous of me, always have been. I'm the one who gets loved, chosen as maid of honor, throwing the big wedding, and you have an empty house and some stupid paperwork. That's not winning Maddie. That's loneliness." I stopped the message before it finished. Jealous. It was always jealousy with her. Every time I set a boundary, every time I said no, it had to be because I was jealous. Jealous that she was spoiled rotten, jealous that she coasted through life cushioned by other people's sacrifices, jealous that she never paid the price for her mistakes. I opened my contacts list. Blocked Sienna's number. Blocked Elaine's, blocked Walter's. 3 taps, and just like that, the world fell eerily, blissfully silent. I sat alone in my sun-drenched kitchen, the granite countertops gleaming under the afternoon light, the lavender gardens outside swaying in the breeze. And for the first time in years, the silence felt like freedom. No more explaining, no more defending, no more bending myself backward for people who only showed up with open hands. Just me and the home I fought to protect. For a while, I thought maybe the worst had passed. I was wrong. The next morning, my inbox exploded with emails from relatives across the country. One from Aunt Patricia. "How could you ruin your sister's wedding like that?" Another from one of Mom's old friends. "Can't believe Maddie turned out to be so controlling. We used to be so proud of you." I gave a short, humorless laugh. Pride was cheap when you weren't the one laying bricks at midnight, when you weren't the one refinancing your own car just to keep a dream alive. Everyone had opinions. None of them had paid a single cent toward this house. That night I couldn't sleep. I pulled my laptop onto the kitchen island and scrolled through every file related to the villa, from the first sketches drawn on napkins to the final invoices stamped paid in full. I backed up every document onto 2 separate hard drives. I emailed a full digital copy to Sophie Lang, my lawyer. By the next morning, I called her. "Morning, Maddie," Sophie answered quickly. "I read through everything last night. What's going on?" "I need to be ready," I said, voice firm. "If they try to pull anything challenge ownership forged documents, I want to be bulletproof. And in the worst case scenario, I want to know if we can file a restraining order." Sophie paused. "You're absolutely within your rights. With what you've sent me, we're already halfway there. I'll get the paperwork started today." I nodded, a small weight lifting from my chest. That afternoon, while reviewing design plans for an upcoming downtown project, the doorbell rang. I glanced at the security monitor and my stomach twisted. Sienna stood at the front gate, clutching a pristine white wedding dress like it was a peace offering, Derek by her side, looking miserably uncomfortable. I didn't move. Sienna rang the bell twice more, then began knocking harder, the knock turning from hopeful to performative, as if she were acting for an invisible audience. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. A notification buzzed on my phone. Security footage backup complete. I sipped my now cold tea, smiling slightly. Let them knock, let them cry, let them perform. This time I had more than walls to protect me. I had the law, I had proof. And most importantly, I had myself rebuilt stronger brick by goddamn brick. No more bending, no more begging, no more Madison Harper sacrificing herself on the altar of family. Just 3 days after the confrontation with Sienna Walter and Elaine, an email from my attorney Sophie Lang popped into my inbox. The subject line was short and sharp: restraining order approved. My heart thudded as I clicked it open, my eyes devouring every bolded line. The Superior Court of Los Angeles County had officially granted a restraining order against Sienna Harper, Walter Harper, and Elaine Harper, prohibiting them from coming within 100 feet of any property owned by Madison L. Harper. Any violation would be a criminal offense. I leaned back in my chair, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. For weeks, I had carried the crushing weight of betrayal, the gnawing fear that everything I'd built could be ripped from me. And now, for the first time, this villa was protected. Truly protected. That afternoon, I called the security company again. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. I upgraded the surveillance system, integrating live smart alerts into my phone, and setting up a remote-controlled gate with biometric facial recognition. No one outside of my approved list could set foot past the iron gates now. While the technicians worked outside, my phone buzzed. It was Sophie. "Madison," she said, her voice brisk but warm. "The official notice has been sent to all 3 of them. They've been served. Also, I've backed up every email, security video, and confrontation footage. If they so much as breathe near your property, we'll have enough to bury them legally." I moved to the glass wall overlooking the valley, the sunset spilling gold across Beverly Hills. "I just want to live here in peace," I said quietly, "without having to watch my back around my own family." "You will," Sophie promised. "Trust me, Maddie. After reading that order, they'll be the ones watching their steps now." The weekend arrived faster than I expected. The housewarming party I had once considered canceling had transformed into something better. Something pure, a gathering of the people who mattered. Colleagues who had weathered impossible deadlines with me, college friends who once shared tiny apartments and endless dreams, neighbors who kept an eye on the villa while I worked late nights. And my architectural team, the ones who had helped bring this dream to life brick by blessed brick. Emily Brooks, my best friend since high school, was the first to arrive, a bright bouquet of yellow tulips in her arms. "Maddie," she squealed, "this place is even better than the renderings." I laughed genuinely for the first time in weeks. If it weren't for you pushing me through permit hell, I probably would have set the blueprints on fire. The energy inside the villa buzzed warmly. Guests wandered through the open-concept living room, marveling at the custom oak beams overhead and the gleaming white granite countertops in the kitchen. They peered into the fully soundproofed office, my sanctuary for future projects, and admired the sprawling terrace that overlooked the infinity pool. As the sun dipped behind the hills, string lights twined around the olive trees flickered to life, casting a soft magical glow across the backyard. At one point, a friend whispered, half joking, Maddie, if you ever get tired of living here, I'll happily take this place off your hands. I smiled. For the first time, I felt like I truly belonged here. Like this villa, this hard-won kingdom, was truly mine inside and out. But the night wasn't done testing me. As I helped refill glasses and pass around macarons, my phone buzzed again, a text from Sophie. Alert! Sienna Harper spotted near your property. Facial recognition triggered at the north corner of the street. She has not crossed the restraining boundary. LAPD notified and incident logged. I didn't react outwardly, I simply slid my phone back into my pocket. Quietly, without drawing attention, I locked the back doors remotely via my phone and activated the secondary perimeter alerts. No one noticed. The laughter continued. The music played and the evening stretched peacefully into the night. I still raised my glass. I still smiled brightly. I still laughed. Like my life wasn't quietly being monitored by security cameras. By midnight, the crowd had thinned out. Only Emily stayed behind, helping me collect plates and blow out the last few candles on the terrace. She stood silently, gazing down at the glittering city lights. After a long moment, she spoke softly. Your mom called me yesterday, she said. She asked if I could talk to you about forgiveness. She said the whole family's falling apart. That Sienna's not eating, not sleeping, that you should be the bigger person. I leaned against the stone railing, feeling the night breeze cool against my skin. You know what gave me the most peace today? I asked, staring out at the twinkling skyline. Emily turned to me, waiting. For the first time in my life, I said, my voice steady. I threw a party without worrying someone would show up and ruin it. Emily didn't reply. She didn't try to argue or convince me otherwise. She simply stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. And in that silent hug, I felt more understood than I ever had by my so-called family. Later that night, I sat alone in the reading room, a soft pool of light spilling across the blueprints for my next project. The villa wasn't just a symbol of success anymore. It wasn't just bricks and glass and carefully curated beauty. It was a triumph, a monument to standing up when it would have been easier to cave. A testimony that sometimes the ultimate act of love is protecting yourself when no one else will. And I wasn't finished yet. Not by a long shot. 1 week after the housewarming party, I was in my office reviewing blueprints for a lakeside development project outside Napa when the doorbell rang. Almost immediately, a notification from the security system popped up on my phone. Visitor Tyler Morgan appointment confirmed via email. I frowned. Tyler was Sienna's ex-fiancé, the one I had barely exchanged more than a few polite hellos with at their engagement party, a miserable evening my parents had all but dragged me to. Curious, but cautious, I made my way to the front entrance. Tyler stood outside his neatly pressed gray suit, doing little to hide the exhaustion etched across his face. His jaw was tight, his shoulders stiff, and in his hands he clutched a thin folder like it might burn him. Sorry for showing up unannounced, he said, his voice low and hoarse, but I didn't know who else to go to. I studied him for a moment, measuring his sincerity, then stepped aside. Inside, I led him to the leather armchairs by the fireplace. He sank into the seat with the air of a man who hadn't slept in days, placing the folder on the coffee table between us, like it was evidence in a trial. I know this sounds crazy, he started, eyes fixed on the floor, but Sienna told me she said this house was hers. I stayed silent, giving him space to unravel the lies he'd only just begun to see. She said your name was only on the deed for tax purposes, that it was a gift from your parents to her and Derek. She made it sound so believable. He finally looked up, shame darkening his features. I believed her, Madison, I really did. I said nothing, just folded my hands in my lap, waiting. Tyler swallowed hard, but at your party, when I saw your real name engraved on the reading room wall, it didn't add up. So I started asking questions, and Sienna got defensive. Then she got evasive. And then I found this. He opened the folder, revealing a series of printouts, bank records, social media posts, and what looked like loan applications. I scanned them quickly. It was worse than I imagined. Sienna hadn't just been lying about the villa. She was actively using images of my property, my blood, my work, my designs to launch a fake real estate company she had dubbed Harper Luxury Estates. There were photos of her standing in front of my wrought iron gate, wearing a sleek blazer, holding blueprints she couldn't have drawn in 100 lifetimes. Captions like, "Designed for the modern elite, a Harper signature build." Another of my custom-designed kitchen with the line "Created personally by Sienna Harper, award-winning developer." A wave of disgust rippled through me. "You said she's applying for loans," I asked, my voice sharper than intended. Tyler nodded grimly. "I checked our joint accounts. There were huge transfers funds being drained, and then I found out she used her parents' names to apply for multiple business loans. Crawford Luxury Estates, Harper Luxury Estates, different names, same scam." He pulled out a few more sheets, loan application signature pages. "I believe the signatures are forged," he said, voice heavy. "And Madison, I think she's setting up a much bigger fraud network, not just targeting me, but investors, maybe even your reputation." I rose, crossing the room to my built-in file cabinet. From the bottom drawer, I pulled out a small black USB drive, something I had prepared months ago out of pure instinct. It contained every blueprint, every city permit, every payment trail tied to this villa. The full legal proof that I was the sole owner, architect, and builder. I placed the drive carefully on the table beside his papers. "I'll send all of this to my attorney," I said, my voice low and deadly calm. "We're going to stop her before she drags down anyone else." Tyler's posture straightened slightly, the weight on his shoulders momentarily lifted by a shred of hope. "Thank you," he said, voice cracking, "for not brushing this off." He stood to leave, hesitating by the door. "You know," he added, "for a long time I thought I was the only one she fooled." I gave a grim smile. She's had a lot of practice. When he left, I returned to my desk, plugged in the USB, and fired off an email to Sophie. I attached everything: Tyler's documents, the fake real estate profiles, the forged loan papers, and the photographic proof of impersonation. In the subject line, I wrote simply, "Urgent financial fraud and identity theft by Sienna Harper." And in the body, "She's not just lying anymore. She's committing open, large-scale fraud. We need to act immediately." That night, sleep was a distant concept. I sat alone in the reading room, staring out through the glass at the quiet backyard, the infinity pool shimmering under the moonlight. This villa, once a symbol of freedom and victory, had become a battleground. Every brick, every light fixture, every drop of blood I had poured into it was now a target for someone else's greed. And the enemy wasn't a stranger. It was the same smiling face that had once sat across from me at family dinners. Sienna hadn't just tried to steal my house, she had tried to steal my life. And she was about to learn the hard way that some battles aren't fought with kindness, they're fought with fire. And I was just getting started. Later that afternoon, just as I wrapped up a virtual meeting with my design team for the upcoming Lakeside project, my phone buzzed with an urgent alert. "Motion detected. Main hall unauthorized entry." My heart skipped a beat. The landscaping crew wasn't scheduled until the next morning. No one else should have been there. I immediately pulled up the live feed on my security app, and what I saw made my blood turn to ice. There, in the middle of my living room, was Sienna holding an iPad, moving gracefully like she owned the place. Surrounding her was a small group of well-dressed individuals taking notes, asking questions. Investors, or rather victims in waiting. "As you can see," Sienna was saying, her voice dripping with fake professionalism, "this is the first of many luxury villas developed by Harper Luxury Estates. I personally designed every feature from the open floor plan to the custom interiors. Early investors will have exclusive access to the next project phase." My hands trembled, but not from fear, from rage. She wasn't just squatting in my home. She was hosting an illegal investment tour, impersonating me, using my property as bait in her fraud. I didn't hesitate. I dialed 911 immediately. "Los Angeles Police Department, how can I assist you?" "This is Madison Harper. There's an intruder in my home at 1728 Crestline Drive. The intruder is hosting an unauthorized real estate investment tour inside my private property. I have a court-approved restraining order against her. Security cameras are recording everything." Less than 10 minutes later, sirens screamed down the street. I stayed glued to the monitor. On screen, Sienna was still animatedly selling her fantasy when two uniformed officers entered the villa. "Police!" one officer barked. "Everyone stay where you are. Who here is Sienna Harper?" Sienna turned, forcing a wide, innocent smile. Is there a problem?" she stammered. "Yes, ma'am. You're violating a restraining order. You are unlawfully using private property and are under investigation for financial fraud. Please step aside." Immediately, the investors began backing away, murmuring angrily. One man, furious, demanded loudly, "Wait, you're telling us this isn't her house? She said she was the architect." Right on cue, I opened the front door, stepping into the scene with a copy of the property deed firmly in hand. I met their bewildered stares with cold clarity. "Apologies for the confusion," I said evenly. "I'm Madison Harper, the sole legal owner and designer of this villa. Everything you've just been told was a lie." Sienna's composure cracked instantly. She thrashed against the officer's hold, tears spilling down her face. "What are you doing?" she screamed. "You're humiliating me in front of everyone." I didn't blink. "It's not me doing this to you, Sienna," I said quietly. "It's the law." I turned back to the stunned investors. "I urge all of you verify information before you invest. This woman has no approved development projects. She is under investigation for impersonation, trespassing, and financial fraud." As the officers let her out, neighbors gathered on porches drawn by the flashing lights and shouting. I stepped back into my home and quietly shut the door, exhaling a breath that felt like it had been trapped in my chest for months. At last, the truth was no longer mine to bear alone. Later that evening, after the chaos had died down, I sat at my desk reviewing the evidence Sophie had compiled. Curious. I conducted a quick reverse image search on some of the villa photos, and what I found made my stomach lurch all over again. Dozens of websites, some real estate listings, some private investment forums featured promotional materials for Harper Luxury Estates, photos of my living room, my kitchen, my private reading nook, all claimed as Sienna's designs. But the final blow, the metadata embedded in the images, the upload account traced back to an email address registered to Elaine Harper, my mother. They weren't innocent bystanders. They weren't clueless pawns. They were accomplices. My own family had helped Sienna steal not just my home, but my creative identity. I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. They thought they could build an empire on the bones of my work. They were about to find out what it felt like to have the ground collapse beneath their feet. I thought the storm would pass after Sienna's arrest. I was wrong. Just hours later, my phone rang. Elaine's name flashed across the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "Madison, have you lost your mind?" she shrieked. Her voice so sharp I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "You had your own sister arrested in front of the neighbors, in front of investors. You've ruined our family name." I let a few seconds of silence stretch between us before replying, my voice as cold as marble. "I warned you. I said I won't let anyone exploit my hard work anymore, not even family." Elaine's breathing grew erratic. I could hear the sob building in her throat. "You can't do this to Sienna," she cried. "She's just trying to build a future." I clenched my jaw, holding back a bitter laugh. "By stealing my house, by impersonating me, by scamming investors." Each word landed like a hammer. "If you're defending her," I added, voice sharper now, "then you're standing on the wrong side." The line went dead without so much as a goodbye. I stared at the dimming screen, my chest hollow but resolute. There was no going back now. That night, I gathered every piece of evidence, security footage, screenshots of Sienna's fake company, Tyler's testimony, and the original deed. I attached everything to an email for Sophie. The subject line was short, "Proceed with full legal action." In the body, I wrote, "Charges impersonation, trespassing, financial fraud, filing immediately." The decision was no longer emotional. It was necessary. 3 days after Sienna's arrest for the illegal investment tour at my villa, I was summoned to the Financial Crimes Division downtown. Detective Noah Reed was assigned to the case. A tall, meticulous man with sharp eyes and a voice that didn't waste words. He met me in a small conference room where a thick file and an open laptop sat waiting. "Madison," he said, his tone serious, "I need you to stay calm for what you're about to hear." I nodded, steeling myself. He clicked on the laptop screen showing charts of bank transfers, email headers, and surveillance photos. "We believe Sienna's actions go far beyond the incident at your villa," he began. I clenched my hands tightly in my lap. "Based on banking data, digital evidence, and witness statements," Noah continued, "Sienna used your social security number, your real estate license, and your project portfolio to fabricate an entire identity. She posed as you, Madison Harper, real estate developer, in a series of communications with investors over the last 8 months." I felt the blood drain from my face. "She used your name to lure investments into a fake company, Harper Luxury Estates, over $2 million, wired from multiple states, all under the false belief they were investing directly with you." My breath caught. $2 million. Noah pulled out some bank statements pointing at wire transfers from Florida, Texas, even New York. "She promised 20-30% returns within 6 months. She showcased your villa, your designs as proof of her success." My hands trembled under the table. "And my parents," I managed to whisper. Noah's expression hardened. "We believe Walter and Elaine Harper were at least partially aware." Among the evidence seized from Sienna's home were several loan applications and investor agreements bearing your parents' signatures. One loan alone was for $750,000. I closed my eyes briefly, the weight of it almost too much. "You mean they're accomplices?" I asked, voice raw. Noah leaned forward. "If they signed knowingly aware that Sienna was impersonating you, then yes, they could be charged as co-conspirators. If they were truly misled, they would be considered victims. That's what we're investigating now." I nodded stiffly, feeling like the floor was tilting beneath me. Noah's voice softened slightly. "We need you to confirm one critical point." I lifted my head, meeting his gaze steadily. "Did you ever authorize Sienna to use your name, your credentials, or your property for business purposes?" I answered without hesitation. "Never, not once." Noah nodded like he already knew. "Thank you. That helps us move forward. We're expanding this to the county's financial crimes division. Given the scale of the fraud, Sienna could face multiple felony charges, and if your parents are found complicit, they won't be shielded either." The interview ended, but I sat there long after, motionless, the words circling like vultures in my mind. Fake loans, stolen identity, $2 million. The family I had sacrificed so much to protect had become the very enemy I needed protection from. As I reached my car in the parking garage, my phone buzzed, dozens of new messages. One stood out, Elaine again. "You can't imagine the pressure your sister is under. She's panicking. Please, Madison, family is about forgiveness." I stared at the message for a long time. Then quietly, deliberately, I deleted it. Forgiveness had already been weaponized against me too many times. This time it was justice I chose. And there would be no going back. That evening, I sat at my desk. The soft glow of the desk lamp, casting long shadows across the floor, I opened my laptop and drafted a new email to Sophie, my attorney. Subject: urgent media strategy. Body: we need to prepare for potential public backlash. If necessary, I'm willing to issue a press statement. I don't want anyone else falling victim to Sienna Harper. Let's strategize first thing tomorrow morning. I hit send, my fingers steady on the keyboard. Then, without thinking, I crossed to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. From the wide window, the city lights of Los Angeles sprawled out before me, glittering, indifferent, timeless. It looked peaceful, as if the world hadn't shifted under my feet. As if I wasn't now fighting a battle not just for my home, but for my name, my reputation, and the life I had built. Brick by bloody brick. I knew better. This wasn't over, and I would protect what was mine no matter what it cost. 3 days later, I was going over contracts at my home office when my phone rang. Unknown number, Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. I answered cautiously. On the other end, a nurse spoke gently. "Miss Harper, I'm calling to inform you your sister Sienna Harper has been admitted to the ER due to severe abdominal pain. She's currently stable in the maternity ward. She's 3 months pregnant." I froze, the words slicing through me. Pregnant. I hadn't known. Neither had Tyler, from what he'd told me. Sienna had kept it hidden even while she was constructing her empire of lies. For a long moment, I said nothing. The nurse asked if I wanted to leave a message. I declined and ended the call politely. Then I stood by the window, gripping the edge of the counter, staring out at the glittering city without seeing any of it. I wasn't shaken for the reason my family would have expected. Not because I was worried about Sienna, but because I knew Elaine would seize this as her final desperate weapon. And sure enough, less than an hour later, my phone rang again. "Elaine," I answered, already bracing myself. "Madison," she said, her voice trembling softer than I'd ever heard it. "Your sister. She's pregnant. She's not doing well. The doctor said her emotional state could harm the baby." I said nothing. "You've already won Madison," she continued, voice cracking. "You have the house, the career, the world at your feet. What more do you need? Sienna has lost everything, and now she's carrying a child. Do you really want to send her to jail while she's pregnant?" I closed my eyes for a moment, centering myself. When I spoke, my voice was calm, but it carried the weight of everything they'd forced me to endure. "Mom," I said slowly, "you just told me Sienna has lost everything, but you forgot something." I opened my eyes, my stare hard as granite. "She's not clinging to life, she's clinging to a lie." Elaine sobbed on the other end, but I kept going, my voice tightening with every word. "And if you truly care about that baby, if you care even 1 ounce, you will let justice take its course. Because no child deserves to be raised on stolen money and false promises." Elaine broke into choked cries. "You're so cruel, Madison," she sobbed. "How can you be so heartless toward your own sister?" I exhaled slowly, feeling none of the guilt she so desperately wanted to summon in me. "I'm not cruel," I said, steel in my voice. "I'm ending the cycle." A pause stretched between us. This cycle where we enable, where we cover up, where we blindly forgive betrayal after betrayal, telling ourselves it's love. Another beat of silence, and then I finished. "Do you even know," I said, voice lowering, "how many loan applications you co-signed for Sienna? Do you understand that your name is now tied to an active fraud investigation?" Elaine whimpered something incoherent, but I didn't stop. "You're calling me cruel," I said, "but you're the one who dragged this family down with your blind trust. You didn't protect Sienna, you fed her delusions, and now you're expecting me to pay the price for all of you." The line went dead. No goodbye. No apology. Just the heavy, hollow silence of a relationship that had been rotting for years, finally collapsing in on itself. I lowered the phone and stared at it for a long time, feeling a strange, unfamiliar stillness settle over me. I wasn't the villain they painted me to be. I was the one finally setting fire to the lies that had suffocated us all. And this time I wasn't backing down. In the end, Madison didn't just win back her villa. She reclaimed the right to live her life on her own terms. No longer sacrificing for people who only took, no longer staying silent in the face of betrayal disguised as family loyalty. And you deserve that too. If you've ever been betrayed by the very people who were supposed to love you, if you've ever been taken advantage of in the name of family, I hope Madison's story touched something deep inside you. What would you choose if you had to pick between family and freedom, forgiveness, or finally walking away? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading every story you send. Comment I9 if you're also on a journey to reclaim your worth and your life. Don't forget to hit like to support more healing stories and subscribe so you don't miss the next courageous journey. Thank you for being here. And always remember, you don't need permission to live your own life. You are worthy of freedom, love, and everything you dream of.